So how would you, differentiate this to the Occupy movement in the US to this movement here in India?
Well, it's very similar. There's a frustration in the population. Quote, we have problems. In Occupy Wall Street, they say we're the 99%, and that 1% is the one that has the bulk of the resources. Now, that's a headline. But if you look at Occupy Wall Street, it's all over the country now. In our city of 100,000, 1 lakh, they're dealing with the local problems. There's a trailer court where poor people live, and they're going to have to move. And that's become one of the feature issues. And all around the world, I think, you're seeing in Uganda, in a number of areas in the world, where people are expressing themselves more. Now, it's not enough that they do that.
So you feel all these movements are interrelated?
Yes, because they feed off of each other. We have a global communications now, which is quite different. If you go to Facebook, if you go to Twitter, and Twitter is remaking itself because it wants to become even more popular. LinkedIn, which is the new professional network, those are all on the web. But in addition to that, you have these, what I like to call guerrilla theater, like these flash mobs and people getting together and dramatizing situations and involving lots of people.
Yes.
So in a sense, it's like bazaar culture, because if you go to a bazaar, they'll be telling you what's happening the next day.
Yeah.
It's rumor, it's gossip, it's not objective necessarily, but the communication value of the bazaar is just incredible.
Right. So everything has come around at the same time. Tunisia happened, this movement happened. So you feel all of that has a link somewhere because everybody is...
No, the link is that no longer will people just sit back like they did for 40 years in Tunisia, in Egypt, Libya, and in Bahrain. The state is absolutely repressive, killing hundreds of people, thousands of people. And yet the Gandhian people power approach is something that's being adopted again.
Yes.
And it's really interesting because it died in India some time ago, and it's being resurrected again now. So I think that is one of the most important elements in what's taking place, not only in India, but around the world.
Right. Okay, now let's shift our focus now to Punjab, and Punjab is gearing up for its elections.
Right.
We've got a little...
Elections are always exciting in Punjab.
Yeah, of course we're not going to say who's in a better position, who's going to win, who's going to lose, but how do you see the process playing out?
Well, in Punjab you've had alternating political parties who have controlled.
Yes.
It's the Akali Dal or the Congress.
Right.
And what kind of alliance systems that they construct is helpful. But it's two really major political parties. I understand this election the Daras are playing more of a role than they have in the past, and of course they're being courted. But politicians and parties will court whatever vote banks or groups of people there are. So I won't make a prediction whether it's Congress or the Akali Dal, but I wouldn't be surprised because they have been alternating in power. And that's not bad.
Okay. Because we have not much to choose from. So if it's not this party we are happy with, then we choose the next.
The voter is saying that they have some unfulfilled expectations.
Yes.
And whatever the ruling party is at that time, and right now it's the Akali Dal, have not fulfilled all those expectations.
Because we have protests every day.
Last time they said the Congress hadn't fulfilled those expectations.
All right, okay. And the Third Front has been very successful, has not in fact ever been successful in Punjab. Now we have Manpreet Singh Badal, the nephew of
I find that very amusing because, I mean, not that it's him or he's formed a new political party, but he's chosen to name the PPP. It's not the Pakistan People's Party, it's the Punjab People's Party. When I first saw that, I was very amused.
But what's your take on the whole scene of Manpreet forming his own party and, taking the third
Well, he's the niece of Prakash Singh Badal. So I mean the nephew of Prakash Singh Badal. So there's, within the family, there are differences, and that expresses itself politically. What role he'll play, I don't know. Third parties have not been very successful in Punjab in the past, and I doubt it will be, very successful this time. But it's always a possibility.
Okay, and now if we look at Kashmir with the militancy dipping a bit, there's a huge demand for revoking the Armed Forces Powers Act. It's a complex debate and it's been on for a while. What would you say to that?
Well, like in Manipur and Assam, this has been a feature, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, And there's been a strong resistance to it in Kashmir. Even with human rights commissions and other bodies that try and temper their behavior. But the long-term prognosis for Punjab, for Kashmir, I think has been underway since at least for the last 10 years. And that is the creation of soft borders. So they've increased trade between the two Kashmirs. The number of buses plying back and forth have increased. And slowly the relations between the two parts of Kashmir have been improving. That, I think, is probably the best outcome. Even though there's a Chatham House survey that shows that the bulk of the populations in both parts of Kashmir would probably like to be separate. Now, I won't have any opinion on that, but I know that neither Pakistan nor India would tolerate an independent Kashmir.
No, that is just not going to happen.
Soft borders is about the best outcome that one can hope for.
And it's been the best way we've ever handled it in its years of history?
I think it's being handled relatively well now. Last summer was not this very past summer, but the summer of 2010 was a very trying summer where you had an indigenous intifada kind of movement.
Yeah.
But this last summer has been more normal. Tourists are flowing back again. Political parties are working. Panchayat elections have finally taken place, and they've been very successful. So normalcy returns again, but Kashmir is always in a very brittle situation.
Yes.
Whether the militancy can return with the force it had in the past, I think is very questionable for a whole variety of reasons. It's not in Pakistan's interest to push it too hard. India is being more effective in terms of how its government system in Kashmir.
Right, right. Okay, but now coming to a very interesting point, and we had a whole Parliament session which had gone, the whole half of the winter session which just went away, which was the FDI. So we had Walmart right there, and the other multi-brand foreign retail chains that have sparked huge controversy. Why does Walmart invoke that fear wherever it goes?
Well, it's invoked a lot of fear in the U.S. too. It's the iconic box store, the huge warehouse-size store that sells everything and is able to put great pressure on the suppliers. So what it sells, it can sell cheaper than other stores. So it eliminates the smaller stores.
Yes.
That's the fear.
Yes.
And to a significant extent, it's true. Now, do people like to shop there? Yes, because there's this variety, there's a decent quality for very low prices. So it is very attractive. They do adapt to cultures. In China, for example, they sell live fish because the Chinese will not buy frozen fish.
Okay, so they adapt to the culture of the place.
And they're very successful. They're relatively successful in China. They'd be successful here. But I don't think Indians have to fear Walmart. And they don't have to
big chain, big
and
stores.
they don't have to fear the big store because that's coming in already. I've seen some of these come in. I think Reliance will probably be bigger than Walmart.
Right.
It's more indigenous. It has the capital. Walmart was not able to compete successfully in Korea.
Well, you've traveled a lot, and you've seen these big stores. Does it really benefit the small-time farmers? And is it? Of course, it's good for the consumer, but is there an overall? Do you see it as a plus, or do you see it as a minus?
Well, the argument for Walmart and the farming sector is you don't have the spoilage that takes place, and you don't have so many different links between the supplier and the seller. So the farmer can get a higher return because you don't have that whole chain. You don't have the Kirani stores. In the United States, those were called Ma and Pa stores.
Yes.
But they disappeared long before Walmart appeared because we had other chains. Walmart is just bigger and more successful than our past big box stores.
Yeah. So then here, like you correctly said, Reliance would be probably bigger.
I think something like Reliance because there's a lot of knowledge in India on the consumer sector.
Yes.
And experience, and I think they would compete effectively against Walmart.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Professor Wallace,
thank
being
you.
with us. Well, that was Professor Wallace, who's come in from the US and given us his time. And we're going to take a short break, but we'll be right back.